In today's poker vlog, we're at the Venetian in Vegas. I'm here to celebrate with my family, so when everyone goes to bed, it's time to hit the tables. We buy into the 3-5 game at the Venetian for $1,000. It's going to be a long night. Thanks for showing up for the vlog and watching, and let's begin. I began recording once I put my 3-bet out, so you already know this is going to be an action-packed hand. The under the gun straddle's on for 10 bucks, so when it gets to the button, he seems like a pro player. He's speaking French and talking to a friend. He seems like he knows what he's doing. He raises up to $40, and we peel king, queen offsuit. I think this is a mandatory 3-bet, especially as a new player on the table, and I think this hand needs some protection, and we don't want to go multi-way out of position, so we decide to isolate the button player. We raise it up to $135. I think I should be going a lot bigger here, like 150 to 160, especially since I'm out of position. It folds all the way to the button, and he decides to put in the chips, and now we're going to a flop. We do not hit our flop. It comes 9-8-3 with 2 diamonds, and after a minute of thinking, I don't think I should continue on this board, and I'm just going to check to our opponent. He can have sets like pocket 9s, 8s, and 3s, and our opponent decides to bet pretty large, $110, and we have no diamonds in our hand, but I think that's irrelevant. Essentially, we're just hoping to hit, what, 6 cards in the deck? So with that in mind, we're just going to release and see another day. I think this might be the first time I've folded the first hand in the vlog. Just try my best to be more realistic in this episode. Next hand, we look down at the best starting hand in poker, pocket aces in late position. I raise it up to $20, and I didn't realize there was a button straddle on, so we end up missing a better sizing, but whatever. The button and the big blind decide to call, so now we're going to a flop, which comes Jack 8-4 all diamonds. We have the ace of diamonds. It checks to me, and I think I should be checking this multi-way most of the time, but we decided to bet $25 just to get some value if there is any to be had. The button folds, but then the big blind calls. The turn is the 9 of clubs. I mean, I guess some straights there, but I don't think straight draws are ever really calling on this flop. I'm assuming our opponent has a diamond of some sort, like the king of diamonds. It checks to us, and we decide to bet $105, and our opponent calls very, very fast. I think this is indicative of top pair, maybe as king jack with the king of diamonds, something simple and easy to think about, easy to call. So the pot is brewing around $300, and the river is a dream card, the 5 of diamonds. We only lose to one hand now, and that's 6-7 of diamonds. I think that would be unlikely. I'm assuming our opponent would raise if he had a flush for protection, especially if I have overcards, which he's assuming I do have. And even more surprising, when our opponent leads for $200. He has $500 behind. I mean, if he is going to lead here, I'm assuming he wants to put the rest of the money in. So we take our time, take a couple of breaths, we don't need to rush it, and we put him all in, and he folds. What in the hell does he fold here? Maybe as the queen of diamonds? That's the only thing that makes sense. Maybe the queen or 10 of diamonds. I'm assuming the king of diamonds never folds after this, but after contemplating, he releases and we get the pot, so that feels good. We are trending upwards, and that's all that matters right now. On to the next. And don't forget, if you want to play with me on Club GG, click the link in the bio and join us. It's called the Cheddar Club. I play in there all the time, low stakes, tournaments, and PLO. I guarantee you'll have a lot of fun on there. So click the link in the bio and follow the instructions on Telegram to sign up and play now. All right, this one's intense. We look down at ace of spades, queen of clubs. We're in the small blind. So it folds to the button. He raises to $20 with this strong hand. I think we should re-raise, especially on a button open. And I love the sizing. We make it $75, which is much larger than before with king, queen offsuit in the beginning of the vlog. And then the big blind snap calls. Then it gets back to the button, and he raises to $220. In my notes, I say that he's a regular. This is a great squeeze spot for him to take money down pre-flop, and I think we have a decent candidate to 4-bet bluff with, and he's on the button, so he can have a very wide range of hands. So with all these factors, I decide to raise him. I don't think we need to go big for a 5-bet, and we decide to make it $535 for a raise. The big blind tanks for a very long time and folds, and then the button snap calls. Oh shit. Okay, now with nearly $1,000 in the middle, the flop comes out and it's not good. It's 7-9-6 with 2 diamonds. We have absolutely nothing. And for some reason, I don't know why I've noticed this, our opponent's on his phone. He called while watching a video. He didn't even have to think about it when it got to him. I think I should be really, really leaning into this because this opponent showed that he had strength. And let's say he was bluffing and he didn't have a strong hand here. whatever. You know, it is what it is. But I decided to go all in on this flop. I know it's dumb, but sometimes I just decided to go with my hand, and I want to represent the strength that I did pre-flop. And I think it's a punt because our opponent was telegraphing to us that he was strong, and we could have saved a lot of money here. So we shove, and he snap calls. He has pocket kings, and the board runs out 7-7. So we have kings full of sevens, and we lose. Not fun. But we tried our best here, and now it's time to battle back. We add on for $400, and ouch. But the whole point of this vlog is to review and learn. I'm not going to ask you to subscribe and turn on notifications after this hand. All right, in this next hand, we gather ourselves, we take a breath, and we remind ourselves that we don't need to be so aggressive all the time, especially in these stakes. Bluffing is not as common as I think it is, so let's continue. We look down at ace, deuce of spades in the small blind. A lot of hands in this position in this vlog. The $10 button straddles on, and when it gets to me, I raise to $40. The big blind folds, and then the button decides to 3-bet us to $110. This is a rather cheap raise, and I think the mistake I made here is I need to either re-raise or release. I just think this hand doesn't play very well out of position, but we decided to put in the call, which I guess works sometimes, especially if we think our button player is light, which I think he was. And that's why we did put in the call in this moment. So now playing out of position, the flop comes ace king 3 with 2 diamonds. We have top pair with the worst kicker in the deck. I check to my opponent, and he checks back. The turn is the 5 of clubs. Still no reason to lead just yet. And I check, and he checks back again. The river is the jack of hearts. I don't know what we're getting value from. We're just going to check and see what he wants to do. And he checks back and shows pocket tens. And we end up scooping this pot and got lucky. Sometimes that's poker. In this next hand, we look down at jack 7 of hearts on the button. The cutoff raises to 20, and I think we can call this sometimes on the button, which we decide to do. The big blind completes, so we're going 3 ways. The flop comes 9, 6, 7 with 2 hearts. So we have a pair of flush draw and backdoor straight draw potentials, and then the big blind decides to lead into both of us for $35. The cutoff calls, and now I think this is a perfect opportunity to raise. We want to protect our hand from overcards. We can also take the pot down now with just second pair, and if the flush comes in, we could possibly get paid. So we raise it up to $100. And then both opponents fold. So we scoop this $130 pot. Nothing crazy here, but perfect opportunity to turn our hand into a bluff with all its equity. On to the next. In this next hand, we look down at pocket nines in middle position. It folds to us. I raise to 20, the button, and the big blind call. $60 in the middle. The flop comes 8, 4, 5 rainbow. The big blind decides to lead for $40. I think this is very strong, and we want to proceed with a call. And the button folds. So now we're heads up, and the turn is the king of clubs. This is a card that's better for me. So when our opponent decides to continue his story, he bets $80, saying that he has value against me. So this king hits my range, which I'm surprised that he still continues on this card, because if he had an 8, I'm assuming he wants to check to see where I'm at. So I think this is a mandatory call, and we're going to proceed cautiously on the river. We might fold if he decides to continue. And the river is an interesting card. It is the king of diamonds. So now any weird 2 pairs counterfeit that he called from the big blind, and he checks. So now I hop into the tank. What am I getting value from here? I don't think he ever checks a boat here. I kind of just think I should default to a check, but there could be value versus, I don't know, 8-5, 8-4. We decided to check back, and our opponent shows 8 for a diamond. So he was getting value, and we got lucky on the river. We were going to fold anyways and not call off any size bet because it would have been strictly value at that moment. We scoop $300 pot our way, and we're on to the next. In this next hand, we have pocket sevens in the cutoff. Under the gun bets $25. I have titled as a newbie, and late position calls a foreign reg pro, the guy who we donated all our money to, with ace queen. And I decided to call. I don't need a raise here. We're just looking to set mine, and since it made the vlog, I'm assuming you know what's going to happen next. Jack 7, 6 with 2 clubs. Under the gun bets $35, and the late position player, the foreign pro, he snap calls. You know we got to pile more money in the middle when he snap calls, especially versus 2 opponents who are interested on this flop. So with all the straight draws and flush draws, we decided to raise it up with our set to $125. Under the gun thinks for 3 freaking minutes. 3 minutes, guys. And he ends up shoving for $800. Late position snap folds. And, I mean, what am I supposed to do here? If he has pocket jacks, nice hand. If he has ace king of clubs, good luck to you. So we decide to call, and our opponent flips over a hand that we are very far ahead of. Aces. Ace of spades, ace of hearts. So now we need to fade the ace of clubs or the ace of diamonds, the only two cards in the deck that can beat us. Turns out our opponent had around $550 in his stack, so we're going to scoop this pot that's over $1,000 and make a decent amount of profit. All right, now I'm going to ask you to subscribe and turn on notifications if you want to join my poker journey as an amateur, turning into a better amateur. In this next hand, we start off on the flop. It's me versus the big blind. I raise it to $20 pre-flop. He called, and the flop is 10-8-3 rainbow. He checks to me, and I bet $20, and then this is where it gets interesting. He raises to $70. I think this is just a call, and we're going to see what the turn develops. So I put in the chips, and the turn is the jack of hearts. Our opponent bets $90, and I still think I should be proceeding with a call here. The jack isn't the best card because jack 10 beats us now, but I guess we can continue and see what the river is. The river is the queen of clubs, and our opponent bets $50. Oh my gosh. This is a disgusting size. He's just trying to milk us for the pair we have. He knows exactly what we have, and we're too curious to not call, so we call the 50, which I think is a mistake, and he shows 9-7 of diamonds for the straight. We just got milked. And I guess I'm just the player to be milked then. I think I can find a fold on the river here, but it is what it is. In this next hand, we look down at pocket nines, both red in middle position. There's one limp. We decided to make our raise a little bit bigger here. We make it $30. In Texas, I raise much larger pre-flop to actually get protection from most opponents. It ends up folding to the small blind, and he decides to re-raise to $140. He sat down for the past hour, and he's been very aggressive, hyper aggressive. So we throw in the chips, reminding ourselves this opponent is hyper aggressive, and we're going to a flop, which comes king 5-5 rainbow. Rather safe, and I'm curious what our opponent's going to do. Our opponent decides to bet half the size of the pot on the flop, $150. It feels larger than necessary if he did have a king, so we have that in mind, and I still think we should be continuing here on the player type, so we call. The turn is the 4 of clubs, so the backdoor club flush draw comes in, and now he decides to bet even bigger, $350. The moment he puts out this bet, my gut says we should still be calling here and navigate a river and call down if necessary. I think he's capable of a triple barrel bluff. So after contemplating for over a minute, we decide to slide in the chips. Rather loose, but versus player type, I believe this is profitable. So now we're going to a river with nearly $1,300 in the middle, and it brings the 5 of clubs. So the backdoor flush draw gets there, and any pair is now a boat because there's 3 5s on the flop. So when our opponent decides to check, I don't think there's any reason to value on ourselves versus like 10s, jacks, or queens that just think that we have a king. So we decide to check back. And our opponent has ace, jack of clubs. He does have the nut flush, but our full house beats him. So, wow, what a random hand. Glad to navigate this correctly, and we scoop this massive pot. One thing I really do enjoy about poker is finding the opponents that you think you can dominate in hand, and hopefully outplay them either pre or post flop. And I think this is one of those situations. But that is the beauty of poker. The worst player you can think of could beat the best in the game. And that's what makes it so universal and so fun to play with your friends and random opponents at the poker table. Being able to figure out the puzzle that is poker in each hand is the reason why I love it. And in this next hand is the perfect example of that. We look down at ace-8 offsuit. We're in late position. It folds to us. We're going to raise up this ace rag hand up to $15. The button and the big blind decide to call. $45 in the middle, and the flop comes ace-4 deuce rainbow. I'm playing monkey in the middle here, so when it checks to me, we're going to continue here with our top pair top kicker, and we're going to make it $25. The button calls and the big blind folds, so now we're heads up. The turn is the jack of hearts. I don't think this changes anything unless our opponent had jack 8 specifically. So the backdoor flush draw comes in as well, so we want protection from that. So we're going to do a bit of a polarized bet here to get value from all other 8s or sticky 4s or deuces. We decided to bet $100. Our opponent calls very quickly. I think this is indicative of maybe a straight draw. Maybe he's like 3-5, ace-3, ace-5, something like that. So when the river's the jack of diamonds, it makes it very unlikely our opponent has a jack, and it feels like we have the best pair. It feels like we have the nuts. That's just the best way I'm going to describe it. That's what my gut was saying me, that we just have the best hand here. So our goal is to get the max value, and if he has nothing, we could check to him and let him bluff, or what we could do is bet small and act weak and snap call a raise. So we decide to do a small blocker bet on the river for nearly 1/6 the size of the pot for $50. And then our plan comes into action. He raises very large, $250. I know that I was going to check this, but we haven't seen our opponent show down too often. We've only seen him be aggressive. And he just sat down, so we don't know whether we're beat or not. I know that we're going to snap in our head and in our conscious, but when he does this, what is he actually doing this with? It has to be ace-jack of some sort. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. 2 overs on a dry board. And we also lose to 9s and 10s, but I think we would have raised pre-flop. So in my head, we have the nut 8, and his line doesn't make any sense. And the whole reason for this blocker bet was to get our opponent to raise, which he does. So we're going to follow through with our plan, and we put in the chips. And he just mucks his hand. He just throws it to the dealer, and we just scoop this pot without having to show down. I always think it's quite odd when someone mucks when they're bluffing, because don't you want to see the hand that I called you with just to get information? Because that is poker. It's like you want as much information as possible and use it to your advantage. Glad I found this blocker size bet to essentially induce max value. So nice. Let's get on to the next hand. This is actually the very next hand dealt to me. It's ace 4 of spades in middle position. So we just started recording on the flop, but pre-flop, under the gun raises to 15, under the gun 2 calls, and we decided to call as well. Sometimes we can re-raise this as a squeeze, and it ends up going us 3 to the flop, and we're in position to 6-5-3 with 2 spades. What a dream flop. Open at a straight draw, backdoor flush, and straight flush potential, and 1 over. This is the dream board for us. Under the gun decides to bet for $30. We get 1 fold, and now it's on us. We decide to call here. I think we should be raising. We're going to be folding out a lot of bluffs, but we decide to just play this slowly and passively. So we call, and now we're heads up, going to a turn with the jack of hearts. Our opponent bets $50, and I don't think the jack of hearts doesn't make any sense for us to raise on it. So we're just going to call here. I mean, now our hands sort of face up. Maybe we have a straight draw or a flush draw that we're chasing. I call. Not really the proudest of how I played this, but the river is the magical deuce of spades. So we have the nut flush, and we also block the straight flush, which would be 3-4 of spades. Our opponent decides to down bet on this card. He makes it $80, and the pot is around $220. So a rather small size, and I think that we can raise here and get a lot of value. I don't think I should go too big because we're going to be folding out a lot of hands that don't want to call a big bet on the river, especially in poker. Calling river raises essentially is just a lot of the time a losing call, especially with my experience being very sticky and from what I've read and studied. So I decide to raise just $105 more, $185 in the middle, and our opponent snap calls, and we show him the nuts, and he folds. Man, back-to-back hands, scooping decent-sized pots. Nothing feels better than that, and that's why we love poker. And then we're going to head to the cage and cash out for a crazy night here in Vegas. So we were in the game for $1,400, and we cash out for $2,675. That's a profit of $1,275. Thank you guys for stopping by. Hope you have a good day, and good luck on the felt.